Join ForumIAS Academy, trusted by hundreds of toppers, including IAS Rank 1 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐥.
Hello friends, a very good evening. This is Vijay. I welcome you all to ForumIAS Hindu Daily. In our today's news discussion, we are going to discuss some 5 topics. The first 3 topics, they are highly important from the aspect of mains and prelims. Last 2 topics, they are prelim-centric topics, right? The first topic, the grammar of commerce in new age of geopolitics. So the article is related to the recent currency swap arrangements between India and the rest of the countries. Secondly, we are having an article, the climate events and an umbrella for urban health. So this is the second article. The third article, issue norms for sex-selective surgeries on intersex infants. So this is the third article. Then fourthly, we are having an article related to FRBM Act and the medium-term expenditure framework. The last article, the Defense Ministry to switch to locally built operating system in computer amid threats. Right? So recently Defense Ministry, they switched to the Maya. So this is the operating system name. Now without any further delay, let us dive into the discussion part. This is the first article, guys. The grammar of commerce in a new age of geopolitics. So throughout the article, the author Sunanta Sen, she has been discussing about the currency swap arrangement. So with respect to the introduction part, the author has been stating that since March 2018, India entered into almost 23 currency swap agreements with both the advanced and developing countries. So this is what she has been stating. And moreover, before getting into the article, you need to know what is meant by currency swap and how it has been functioning. So currency swap is nothing but an arrangement. It is an arrangement or agreement which will be existing between 2 countries or more than 2 countries, right? In that, the partner countries, they will be conducting the economic transactions. Whether it may be trade or capital flow, it may be in the form of native currency. So they will be utilizing the potential of the native currency for the economic transactions between them, right? So this is the basic you need to know. And here in the definition, it has been given that the currency swap means exchange. A currency swap between 2 countries is an agreement or contract to exchange the currencies with predetermined terms and conditions. In each and every currency swap arrangement, there will be some predetermined terms and conditions. What are those conditions? In some cases, there will be a availability of 100% currency swap between the partners. In some cases, there will be a partial currency swapping arrangements will be there. Let's say 70% of the transactions will be conducted in their own native currency, and for the rest of the 30% transactions, they will be relying on some other dollars or euros or any Japanese yen like that. Okay, so this is how the currency swapping arrangement have been functioning. And here, with respect to this article, in this portion, the author has been describing about the scenario what exists between India and Russia. So we all will know on Feb 24th, 2022, Russia kickstarted its special military operations on Ukraine. Because Ukraine, it had shown its interest to join the NATO. That's what Russia, it kickstarted its special military operations. So after the initiation of the special military operations, the Western countries like Germany, France, UK, Italy, they all came together and they colluded with US. And they imposed sanctions upon Russia. So the resources, what Russia was having in the foreign banks, it got freeze, right? Moreover, Russia was also looking up for new market. In that time, India, it was looking up to ensure its energy security. So it was looking up for some reliable energy suppliers. So Russia, it came into the scenario. Then these countries, they entered into the currency swap arrangements. So under this arrangement, Russia agreed to supply the low price crude oil to India. In the year of 2022, the market price of the crude oil was around some $85. But Russia agreed to supply the oil between $55 to $65. right? So this was the profit what Indian refiners fetched with a supply of Russian crude oil. Moreover, the currency swap arrangement, as I already told you, here in the image you can see we are having Indian exporters, right? So they will be exporting the goods to the Russian companies. And the Russian entity who is importing the goods, they will be paying the rubles, okay? Ruble is their own native currency in the Russian bank. So the banks, it will be retaining the rubles and it will be releasing the rupee to the Indian customer. Okay, so this is how the arrangement have been functioning. Moreover, Indian oil refiners, they also importing the crude oil from Russia, right? So the importers, the Indian refining company, they will be paying the rupee in the Vostro account of Indian banks. So these Vostro accounts, it will be maintained in the Russian banks. So they will be receiving the INR. Moreover, in turn, they will be releasing the rubles to the crude exporters in Russia. So this is how the currency swap arrangements have been functioning. So with the special military operations by Russia, India, it got its source for cheapest crude supply and it entered into the currency swap arrangement. But in recent times, both Russia and India, they have been witnessing some issues have been flaring up. With respect to Russia, there is a huge accumulation of rupee in their Vostro account, but they couldn't able to see any avenues to do a purchase from India. Because right now the trade deficit is very high. It is almost around 40 billion US dollars. Okay. So this is the trade deficit what India is having with respect to Russia. So Russia, it couldn't able to witness any avenues to spend the rupee what it is having in their Vostro account. So that's what they have been asking India to do a payment in Chinese yuan. So here comes the role of the yuan. It is not willing to pay the settlements in the yuan. But with respect to Russia, it is having lot of avenues in China to do a procurement. So it will be utilizing the yuan what India is paying in the payment system. So this is what Russia is looking up for. Moreover, the author has been discussing the events which occurred in the past between 1950 to 1987, right? So in this timeline, she has been discussing the several events which occurred between India and the then Soviet Union. So this is what she has been discussing in this portion. Here, she has been stating that there was a currency swap arrangement which existed between India and the Soviet Union between 1950 to 1987. But in the year of 1971, the value of the dollar, it was determined based on the market demand, which means the dollar, it came into the floating rate. Okay. So if the value of the currency is determined based on the demand and supply means, we used to call it as a floating rate. Right now, with respect to Indian currency, we are following a floating rate arrangement, right? It actually affected the health of Indian currency. So the Soviet Union, it showed some reluctance in conducting the currency swap arrangement between India and Soviet Union. Okay, so the reluctance, it came from Soviet Union. Then between 1980 to 1991, there was one issue, which is the balkanization of Soviet Union. Lot of countries, they become independent of the Soviet Union. It actually created some internal repercussions in the Soviet Union. So it put a full stop to the currency swap arrangement which existed between 1950 to 1987. So this is what the author has been discussing in the portion. Okay, so this is what the author has been discussing in this portion. Then she has been stating about the settlements in yuan. See, with respect to yuan settlements, it may be convenient to Russia. Right now, Indian refiners, they are also doing the settlements in yuan only, because both Russia and China, they are having elaborate trade between them. Moreover, it will help Russia to spend the yuan in some other countries also. But with respect to the rupee, it is having excess accumulation of rupee in its Vostro account, right? But it couldn't able to find any avenues for spending the rupee which is accumulated in their Vostro account. So this is the issue what Russia has been facing. But with respect to the yuan settlement, if we are engaging in settling the payments in yuan means it may be positive note for China, but it is not so for India, because with respect to the geopolitical and geo-economic interest, India, it won't be willing to do a payment in yuan, because both these countries, they have been witnessing standoff in their borders. Also, China is well known for leveraging its economic interest in the international arena. So, it will be against India if India is engaging in settling the payments in yuan means. Okay, so this is what you need to know. Moreover, most of the non-Chinese members in the BRICS also against the settlements in yuan. Okay, so this is what the author has been stating. In that context, she has been stating about another one currency swap arrangement which exists between UAE and India. So that is the dirham rupee swapping. So it covers the transactions in remittance, trade and all outflows, which includes the remittances. Okay, so almost 18% of the remittances of India, it came from UAE. And UAE, it has been stationing almost some 13.5 millions of Indians in their territory. So there is a huge scope for the remittances. So all these remittances to India will be paid in rupee. So this is the arrangement they delivered. Moreover, with respect to the dirham rupee arrangement, it interlinks both the payment system and messaging system. Thereafter, it results in the cost-efficient transfer between the citizens in UAE and the citizens in India. So this is what she has been stating. In the future, India also may think of including the Russia in the dirham rupee arrangement, because the rupee what the Russia is having in its Vostro account can be spent in UAE. Okay. Then in the conclusion part, the author has been stating that all these currency swap arrangements, it actually mentioned to break the hegemony of US dollars. So the Russian ruble, Chinese yuan, UAE dirham, or even Indonesia's rupiah, they all share the common goal of local currency transactions. So it actually emphasizing more on the geo-economic and political interest in the international arena by the global south countries. So this is what she has been mentioning. So once if we are extending the clout of the economy in the international arena means, then we can expand the footprint of the political interest, right? So the economical interest should be the priority for the countries who are looking up to break the hegemony of the US dollar. So this is what the author also mentioning. Now let us have a brief about the currency swap significance. So the currency swap arrangement, it improves the confidence in the Indian market. If India is having more currency swap arrangement means, it will be improving the confidence in the Indian market, because the transactions and the volume of the transactions will be very high. If we are having a currency swap arrangement means, it will boost the confidence among the investors. So this is the first point. Secondly, it enables the agreed amount of capital being available to India. Whenever you are visiting the bank, they will be providing you the loan based on the transactions how you are making in your account. Okay, so the currency swap arrangements, it will be acting as a evidence for the amount of transaction how India have been performing in the international market. So the capital will be availed at a cheaper rate. So this is what it has been stated here also. The capital availability will be boosted and the cheap source of capital will be availed to India, right? Then lastly, it aids in bringing greater stability to foreign exchange and capital markets in India. Once in the international market, if you boosted the confidence means, automatically the stability will be restored, right? So this is what the fourth point has been stating, right? Now let us wind up this article here. Let us move on to the next article. This is the second article, guys. Climate events and an umbrella for urban health. So here the authors are Pradeep and Indranil. So they have been stating that due to the global climate change, the extreme events is on rise. Even India is also witnessing huge number of extreme events like the flooding, drought, right? So these events, they are going to affect a poor section of the community in a large scale, that too in the urban landscape. So this is what they have been stating. Whether it may be flooding or drought, so the affected region, the affected urban landscape, it will be acting as a breeding ground for several number of contagious diseases like the cholera, typhoid, then dysentery, leptospirosis, then malaria, then dengue, right? So these are all diseases, it will be proliferated in the affected region. So this is what both the authors have been discussing. So in the future, we are going to witness more and more the climate related events. The frequency and magnitude both are going to rise. Therefore, this is a time to take certain precautionary measures like that they have been quoting. Then they have been showing some highlights from Indian Journal of Public Health. So the Indian Journal of Public Health, it has been stating that the households in general with poor socioeconomic indicators are more vulnerable to malaria. It is urban households when compared to their rural counterparts. So this is the first highlight the Indian Journal of Public Health has been stating. So this is what they had given here. Secondly, the households from climatically high and moderately high vulnerable states are greater odds of suffering from malaria. So the regions which are going to witness the drastic change in climate parameters will be affected by malaria in a large scale, right? So to control these factors, we will be requiring a systematic and coordinated effort between the states. So this is the author's opinion. Then they have been stating that we need to build a resilient public primary health system. Why we need to build a public primary health system? Because the people who are living in slums and urban settlement colonies in the urban landscape, they won't be having any resource to treat the diseases. Therefore, we need to build a resilient public primary health system. Okay. Then secondly, to build a resilient public primary health system, we will be requiring the investments. Who will make the investments? Because the public primary health system, it is a non-profitable domain. So the government should come forward. They need to make investments to areas that are vulnerable to the shocks. Shocks means nothing but a disaster. So the urban landscape, that too, the urban slums and urban settlement colonies, they are going to witness the shocks from climate change. So the government, they need to ramp up the public investments in these regions. So this is the second opinion they have been stating. Then thirdly, the local bodies' responsibility, because the local bodies are the one who are in touch with the grassroots level people. So we need to emphasize more on preventive healthcare through the local bodies. So this is the third opinion they have been making. Rather than depending upon the curative healthcare, we need to focus more on the preventive healthcare, because if we are emphasizing more on the preventive healthcare means then the cost incurring for ensuring the public health will be very low. So to ensure the local body responsibility, we need to devolve the funds through the finance commissions, okay? Because they will be requiring the fund, right, to meet out the challenges. For that, we need to devolve the fund through the finance commission recommendations. Then the learning from COVID-19 pandemic, right? So we all well know, during the COVID-19 pandemic, the state government and the central government, they actually had taken several coordinated efforts to tackle the challenges. So this is what they have been mentioning. So in this portion, they have been discussing about the lessons what we learned from the COVID-19 pandemic. So the experience during the COVID-19 pandemic, it has shown that public health emergencies need greater coordination and cooperation across various actors in terms of knowledge and data sharing, preventive and curative functions, treatment practices, and above all, the regulation of the rates and standards. Because it will be determining the beneficiaries, okay? So if the cost is very high means then the poor people, they won't afford. So that's what we need to focus more on, the rates and standards. So at low cost, we need to ensure the better standards in the treatment protocols. So this is what they have been stating. Lastly, they are also arguing for the unification of the frontline workers. So rather than working in a haphazard way, we need to create the unique frontline force to act on multi-purpose strategy. Whatever may be the disease, there will be a single domain of force and they will be tackling the challenge. This is how the system need to be redesigned. So these are all the things the authors have been discussing with respect to this article, right? Now let us wind up this article here. Let us move on to the next article. This is the third topic, guys. Issue norms for sex selective surgeries on intersex infants. Okay, so this is the article title. With respect to this article, first you need to know what is meant by intersex. Okay, we all well know some three genders, male, female, and transgenders, right? So intersex means in some cases, the infants, they will be getting the birth with both male genital organs and female genital organs, okay? So due to the genetic disorder or any genetic disarrangement, this issue have been flaring up. So here they have been stated that intersex is a general term used for a variety of situations in which a person is born with reproductive or sexual anatomy that does not fit the boxes of male and female. So generally there will be an anomaly in the physical reproductive systems, okay? So this is what you need to know. With respect to this case, one case it came into the Kerala High Court and it stated that the parents, they don't have any right to fix the gender for the infants. If there is any anomaly in the reproductive system means, then the parents, they don't have any right to fix the gender by doing the sex selective surgeries, because today they will be conducting the surgery and they will fix the gender, right? But in the adolescent stage, the infant, they may associate with some other genders, right? So it will create some emotional trauma within them. So this is the concern of the High Court. And they also quoted that in the NALSA judgment, the Apex Court, it clearly stated that each and every individual, they are having their own right to gender identity. You or me, we are having our own right to determine the gender. So this is the NALSA judgment in which what Apex Court had pronounced. So the self-identification of the gender is the inherent right of each and every citizen who born in India. So this is the judgment made under the NALSA, okay? And with respect to this case, the Kerala High Court, it quoted the few highlights from the NALSA judgment and the Transgender Persons Act, okay? In the Transgender Persons Act, section 2 of the Transgender Persons Act, it clearly stated that the intersex people who are a gender minority, it will also clubbed under a term transgender. So whatever the benefits, what we are providing to the transgender, we need to offer the same to the gender minorities who are the intersex people. So we don't have any right to fix the gender. In the future, they can determine their own gender. So this is the High Court pronouncement. Moreover, the High Court, it directed the state government to constitute a state-level multidisciplinary committee, which composed of pediatrician or pediatric endocrinologist, then pediatric surgeon, then child psychiatrist or child psychologist, to decide whether the child was facing any life-threatening situation by reason of ambiguous genitalia, which means if there is any life-threatening situation means, then the parents or the doctors, they can do sex selective surgeries. If not the case means, then we are not supposed to do any sex selective or sex correction surgeries in the infants, right? So this is the verdict pronounced by the Kerala High Court. Now, with respect to this article, this is a very important article from the perspective of the paper 1 and paper 2. In the past, we witnessed some questions related to the gender-related issues in the UPSC mains. So that's what I handpicked this article. Moreover, what we discussed is sufficient just to do a brainstorm with respect to the topic, right? Now let us wind up this article here. Let us move on to the next article. This is the fourth article, guys. Fiscal firepower necessary to handle exogenous shocks, right? So here, the finance ministry, they clearly stated that there is no favorable change in the global headwinds and the associated risk. Therefore, they couldn't able to release the medium-term expenditure framework under the FRBM Act. What is meant by FRBM Act? It actually sets some responsibility upon both the central government and state government, which are related to the fiscal deficit and revenue deficits. Okay. So under the FRBM Act, they are supposed to submit the medium-term expenditure framework. This is the framework for short-term, which may be for 3 years. Okay. For the next 3 years, how they are going to tackling the commitments. This is what it will be stated under the medium-term expenditure framework. So what are the resources? Then where we are going to spend, this is how it will be listed in the medium-term expenditure framework, right? So due to the unfavorable, the international situation, the finance ministry, they couldn't able to release the medium term expenditure framework. So this is the article. Now with respect to this article, we need to know what is meant by FRBM Act and what is meant by medium term expenditure framework. So FRBM Act, it actually fixes some responsibility upon both the central government and the state government, which are related to the fiscal deficit commitments and their revenue deficit commitments. Okay. So since the enactment, they are supposed to achieve the 0% in their revenue deficit. So they are supposed to reduce 0.5% in their revenue deficit every year, and they are supposed to achieve 0% of the GDP. Okay. So this is with respect to the revenue deficit. Revenue deficit means, which is the discrepancy which exists between the revenue receipts and their revenue expenditure, right? Then with respect to the fiscal deficit, so the fiscal deficit is nothing but a discrepancy which exists between the budget incoming resources and the budget expenditures, right? So with respect to the fiscal deficit, it is supposed to be in the range of 3% of the GDP. So this is also applicable to the respective states also. To ensure that states too are financially prudent, the 12th Finance Commission recommendation in 2004 linked debt relief to states with their enactment of similar laws. So in the year of 2004, several states, they enacted their own variant of FRBM Act, which sets 3% of the gross state domestic product. So with respect to the FRBM Act, there are two provisions. One is related to the revenue deficit and another one is related to the fiscal deficit. And the fiscal deficit, it can be breached in some occasions. There are some exceptional clauses are there. So the first one is national security, then war, then national calamity, then collapse of agriculture. Then if there is any structural reforms, as like what India did in 1991 means, then it will be accepted. So if the fiscal deficit, if it is breached above 3% of the GDP means, it will be accepted if India conducted any structural reforms. Then we are having decline in real output growth of a quarter by at least 3 percentage points below the average of the previous 4 quarters. So in these scenarios, if there is any breach of fiscal deficit target means it will be accepted. Okay. In rest of the cases, the country need to abide by the 3% of the GDP. This is the target what FRBM have been imposing upon the government. Right. Now let us have a brief about the medium term expenditure framework. So the medium term expenditure framework, it will be listing out the income resource and the expenditure avenues for the next 3 years. So the expenditure commitment of the government on major policy changes involving new services, new instruments of services, new schemes and programs. So the medium term expenditure framework, it will be consist of all the new services and the new schemes what the government is going to provide. Then it will also highlight the contingent liabilities, which are in the form of stipulated annuity payments over a multi-year time frame. So it will be having several commitments with respect to the interest payments, then capital repayments, right? So that also will be shortlisted in the medium-term expenditure framework. Then it will be having detailed breakup for grants for creation of a capital assets. How they are going to get the grants for constructing the capital assets. So these are all the stuffs it will be provided in the medium-term expenditure framework. Medium-term expenditure framework is nothing but a statement of the revenue and expenditure for the upcoming 3 years. Okay. So this is the mandatory provision what the finance ministry is supposed to provide under the FRBM Act. Right. So this topic is highly important from the perspective of prelims. Okay. Now let us wind up this article here. Let us move on to the next article. This is the last article, guys. Defense Ministry to switch to locally built OS in computers amid threats. So this is the article title. So recently, the Defense Ministry, it has decided to replace the Microsoft operating system in all its computers connected to the internet with a new OS. Name is Maya. Okay. So it will replace all the Microsoft operating system in the Defense Ministry systems which are connected to the internet. And the Maya, it has the interface and the functionality, it will be like a Windows. But the one and only difference is it is based on the Ubuntu platform, right? Then in all the systems, they also installed the Chakra View. So it is a monitoring system. It is installed in all the systems, okay? in the future, it is expected that the government will be rolling out the Maya to all the TRI services. So in all the computers which are connected to the internet, it will be having the Maya operating system in the future. Because in the recent times, the government have been witnessing massive amount of cyber attacks on Indian systems. So it actually have been questioning the security architect of the Indian cyber ecosystem. Okay. So in this context, the government, they came up with Maya's software, which is an operating system, and it is developed by the government agencies. Okay. So I don't think so there is any private participation in the development of Maya, because so far I searched with respect to Maya, it didn't show any private agencies. It is a government developed operating system, and it is based on the Ubuntu platform. And the interface of Maya will be as like Windows, so it is user friendly. So this is the statement what the Defense Ministry had made, right? So this article, it is highly important from the aspect of prelims and not from the mains. But while you are writing the answer with respect to the cyber security in mains, you can quote Maya as an example, right? So let us wind up this article here. Let us move on to the question part. Before getting into the question part, let us have a brief recap on what we have seen in today's discussion. The first article is related to the currency swap. Right? Then second article is related to the climate and the related impact on urban health. Then thirdly, we have seen an article related to intersex. So the High Court of Kerala, they pronounced verdict that there should not be any sex correction surgeries in the infants, right? Then fourth article is related to the FRBM. Then medium term expenditure framework. So this is the fourth article we have seen. And lastly, it is an article related to the Maya. So these are the few stuffs we have seen in our today's discussion. Now with this note, let us move on to the question section. So this is the mains question for you. Geoeconomics prevail over geopolitics. In this context, discuss the recent currency swap arrangements of India and the concerns and the benefits related to it. So in the benefits, you can show the significance what we have seen in our today's discussion. And with respect to the concerns, you can discuss what are the payment issues what we are having with Russia. Okay. So this is the prelims question for you. Consider the statements about the Maya operating system. It is based on the Ubuntu platform. So this is true. Then secondly, it is developed by Infosys and Mindtree Private Limited for the government agencies. As I already told you, it is indigenously developed by government agencies. So we don't have any private participation with respect to the development of Maya operating system. So answer option A is the right one for question number 1. This is the second question, guys, and this is related to the functions of drones. And here they had given 3 statements. So spraying pesticide on a crop field, we can do spraying of pesticides and we can sow seeds with the help of drone. So the first option is right. Then inspecting the craters of active volcanoes, we can do inspections with the help of drones in the active volcanoes. So this is also true. Then thirdly, collecting breath samples from spouting wells for DNA analysis. So this is also true. Then apart from these 3 functions, we can also deliver explosives by using drones as a carrier. So this is what the kamikaze drone have been doing in the Russian-Ukraine war. Then we can do spying activities with the help of drone. Recently, India also procured MQ-9 Reaper drone from the United States, right? So all these 3 statements are right. The answer option D is the right one for question number 2. This is the third question. In the context of recent advances in the human reproductive technology, the pro-nuclear transfer is used for. So it is a mitochondrial replacement therapy. So this is what the pro-nuclear transfer means. So it is the prevention of the mitochondrial diseases in the offspring. So in the fertilized zygote, if there is any issues in the mitochondria, means it will be replaced with the healthy mitochondria from some other donor. Then it will be placed in the uterus of the concerned woman. Okay. So in the future, it will be developed into a healthy infant. So answer option D is the right one for question number 3. Finally, we are arriving at the end of the discussion. I hope you would like this discussion. Kindly give a feedback, press the like button. Let me catch you in another discussion tomorrow. Thank you for your patience. Have a nice day.